In your religion, what makes a person an adult or an elder?
What makes a person an adult or an elder? That's a good question, because I think of them in our religion as two different categories. Technically, an adult is when someone becomes a bar or a bat mitzvah. Here it's associated with a big celebration, a special service, a party afterwards, but it's actually a physiological category in Jewish law. Generally, when a girl becomes 12 and when a boy becomes 13, he or she respectively becomes a bat or a bar mitzvah, which means a son or a daughter of the commandment. And it means that they're now legal. They're not looked at as minors anymore. As far as Jewish law, as far as Jewish ritual, they're liable for all the laws, the ritual laws, as far as keeping Shabbat, as far as keeping the dietary restrictions, and so forth, keeping the ethical commandments about how we treat one another. Now, as far as an elder, that's a different term. In the Torah, it talks about zakenim or a zakein. That is a seasoned person, someone who is mature, someone who's experienced certain things, who can lead, who can advise. Moses was told to pick 70 elders to help adjudicate, to delegate responsibility to them so that he wasn't leading all the people in as they crossed through the desert before they came into the promised land. So an elder would probably connote someone who has seen more and experienced more, someone who can be entrusted with a certain amount of responsibility. Not every 12 and 13-year-old can. Not every 18-year-old can. But it's not so much a legal category. In Jewish law and in Jewish tradition, someone's legally responsible for their conduct and for their religious and ethical behavior for a woman when they become 12 and for a boy when they become 13.
Is there a reason why it's 12 for a girl but 13 for a boy?
Probably because I think they're associated with physiological changes. Again, those were the ages that were chosen. I don't think that they're wholly arbitrary. There had to be certain physical telltale signs for the boy as far as how he was developing, and for the girl as well. And even today, at those ages, you're starting to mature and develop in a certain, manner. A lot of times that's when a growth spurt can occur. Certainly for a boy, that's often when their voice changes. And the irony, of course, it could be one of the most difficult ages. And what do? We give them this whole special ceremony and learning a Haftorah and writing a sermon and things like that. But I think because those physiological changes were occurring then and there, that it was looked at as almost as a phase, right? A transition point between childhood and adulthood. You're not an adult at 12 or 13. Let's be honest. I don't think you were any more an adult in ancient times than you are today. But you're also no longer a child. You were changing, and it's very possible that at that age, just as a girl was starting to show these telltale signs and starting to mature, she was given more responsibility. She would help much more with the cooking and the cleaning, and parents might consider marriage prospects for her. And for a boy too, he might be expected to work in the field with his father. And like I said, I think it was a transition point between when they had been children and now they were turning into adults. Certainly with 13, something happens at 13 that doesn't happen at any other age. When you're 13, you begin your teenage years, right? You guys are both Wheatley students, right? And that's when you begin
Yeah.
high school. So it's a very key transition point. And I think that may have been why those ages were chosen, because that's really the onset of puberty, and it's the onset of that shift and that transition. And within a few years, they'll be expected to be married or preparing for marriage. Maybe not today, because kids go off to college and they take much longer to complete that maturation cycle. But in ancient times, they were going to start preparing for that and going into a trade as well.
What obligations do followers have after their bar or bat mitzvah that they didn't have before?
Okay, so literally a bar mitzvah means a son of the commandment. A bat mitzvah is the daughter of the commandment. It's really someone who's connected now to the commandment. So it's a good question. What it means is that they're liable. They're liable for Jewish law. So now suddenly, once they're 13, they have to fast on Yom Kippur. They have to be very careful about what they eat and don't eat during Pesach, during Passover. They have to light the Hanukkah candles. Right? They have to adhere to Jewish ritual and Jewish law. They can't say, well, I'm a kid anymore, it doesn't matter. I don't have to fast on Yom Kippur. I should only fast half a day. They're not kids anymore. They're considered, as far as Jewish law, they're considered no longer minors. They're considered adults. Here I think the age is 18 for criminal law, how you can be tried and so forth. And I think, back then for Jewish law and Jewish ritual, it was those ages, and you were considered liable if you abrogated those laws. And those laws are ritual, but they're also ethical. How you conduct yourself around other people, how you treat other people, the consideration you show them, giving charity. You had to adhere to all that. You can no longer say, I'm my parents' responsibility, I'm just a child. No, you were responsible for your own actions and conduct.
It's very interesting.
Does your religion believe that being an adult is focused on age or mindset?
Does your religion believe that Jewish law is focused on age or mindset? I think a little bit of both, to be honest with you, a little bit of both. As I mentioned, age is very important because, there was that clear dividing line. When you became 12, you were considered a bat mitzvah. When you became 13, you were considered a bar mitzvah. And then it was later on in the Middle Ages when they concocted this whole special service, and then in America, the party and everything like that, to celebrate it, this entry into adulthood. But mindset also matters as well, because in Jewish tradition, there's something known as kavanah. Whatever your intention is, whatever your direction is, you have to have the right intention when you pray. You have to have the right intention when you do certain acts, when you perform certain acts. And even in the case of someone who's at 12 or 13, but is not wholly developed, their mindset, their maturation, maybe there are certain delays, their disabilities and so forth. They're not considered liable for their actions. On the contrary, there are certain things that they're not supposed to do. Whereas someone who's 13 can actually be a witness to a legal document in Jewish law. They say someone who has those certain disabilities and delays and so forth shouldn't be a witness. And I think it's similar also probably in secular law as well, as far as criminal law and so forth. There are certain people that can't be tried in the same way, or can't always be legally held accountable for their actions based on like I said, certain disabilities and perhaps mental deficiencies. But I think it is both, to answer your question, that age is important, but also that you have to have the correct mindset. And I think with Jewish law, with all things that you do, the mitzvot, all the commandments that you perform, you have to have the right mindset when you do them, because if you've done them without thinking about them, or if you do them carelessly, or you do them without forethought, without consideration, it's almost as if they didn't count. Right? We just celebrated Purim, and one of the laws that you have is you have to hear the Megillah being chanted. Which was a few years ago, I think Taylor chanted part of the Megillah for us, and you're supposed to listen. You're really supposed to listen as all the words are chanted. You're supposed to have that proper mindset.
Thank you.
What's your opinion on whether the bar mitzvah is the real shift or not? Unless, you guys already asked that, but...
Yeah.
Okay, when the Bible says he created the man in our image, when did we all of a sudden transition from being monotheistic to poly?
When the Bible says he created us in our image,
yeah.
I mean because of the plural, us?
Yeah.
Well, the rabbis say that he's talking to angels. He's talking to his holy retinue who accompanies him in the heavens. So it's not multiple gods that he's talking to, but he's talking to the angels in heaven, and he's saying, let us make man in our image, B'Tselem Elohim. It's not the physical image, because God doesn't look like us.